Confession out the way first, I don't love how throwing knives feel in Payday 3. They're just a little too small to track and learn their trajectories, compared to the almost comically oversized knives of Payday 2. I'm pretty sure I could aim in my sleep after all those weird challenge runs. That's why I've struggled to buy into the gimmicks of the new skill branch dedicated to them in Skills 2.0. Fan Throw just feels off somehow, and Hidden Blade has really interesting situational application, but not really in a build set on actually chucking these things out. Instead, I want to lean on the utility these knives now facilitate, using their impressive bleed damage potential to one-shot every cop I hit, whilst also benefiting tremendously from the adrenaline spikes they offer. Even if you can no longer pick up missed knives, and often end up losing them after they've penetrated through an entire group of swords, you can still get a ton of value out of each toss, sustaining them directly whilst still having access to a full suite of weapon skills to augment the build. Although I believe throwing knives remain the most situational of the throwable options, with virtually all of them receiving massive buffs in Skills 2.0, the sheer amount of tankiness they provide you with almost effortlessly shouldn't be slept on, enabling the sort of kill-to-survive build reminiscent of Anarchist from Payday 2 we've all been looking for. A totally out-there playstyle that's worth your time to try out, alongside many of the other builds across this Skills 2.0 playlist. Check out any you missed from the link in the description, and enjoy. So this is one of my more slightly complicated builds, I would say, so I'm going to have to explain my thinking behind a lot of these skill choices. Moving over first to the throwing knife skills themselves, we go Laceration, Deep Wounds, after picking up Knife Expert. Of course, this is what's going to increase our knife capacity, and these are what's going to give us the one-shot kill on throw, although it is going to be over time. Prison Shift we also ace out, probably the best and most interesting skill in the line, but then we dodge Hidden Blade and Fan Throw. Moving over to Pill Pusher, we're going to make a lot of use of those throwing knives by acing out Doctor's Orders, an amazing skill even with just a few skill points in the line. That immunity when you get the revive is always powerful. But we ace out Pain Tolerance. Now this skill is going to change in the future, but for right now, what it's going to do is provide us with constant adrenaline on kill, and it's going to give us resistance into that adrenaline, depending on the build setup's downs. It's actually quite a powerful combination. It means your adrenaline is much more defensible than it would be otherwise. It makes your armor pool much more defensible as a result. This is kind of a small package, I would say. Normally I'd like further commitment in the Pill Pusher line. We have to be quite lean with it, but I think this has been enough from testing to get the value from the point investment. Moving over to the Professional, this is where it gets a little strange because we ace out Trade Broker, we grab Consumerism and Magnetic Charm. We need a dump skill somewhere. It could be basically anything. We're not going to get value out of any of them. And then we go Utility Belt Aced. This is for 5 more knives within our setup, and we're also going to get some value out of these hostage trading skills I'll explain later in the gameplay portion. This is more throwing knives than we'd get if we just aced out Hidden Blade and Fan Throw. Yes, it's for 1 more point, but I think the additional utility from Puppet Master is worth it. Moving on to our primary weapon of choice, the FSA is going to need some boost, so we go Calling Shotgun, Stockpile Basic, and Point Blank. This is what's going to allow it to hit the one-shot kill threshold, alongside Annihilation, up to an 100% damage increase, and then Speed Loader Basic. Because this thing is going to have 15 rounds in a mag, you don't need the aced version. You can hit the 70% as long as you're not reloading constantly, almost automatically, and as long as you're hitting your shots at least reasonably frequently. Finally, this is an armor setup. It's a strange tank throwing knife build. So we go Soldier, the usual. We go Extra Protection, we go Armored Up, we get a single point in Head Guard, Armored Up 2, one of the best skills in the game right now, and then you see we have 5 points left for Bastion and Beast of Burden. Until Bastion changes, this is still the way to go with it. And I think I've explained enough across all the other builds how powerful Armored Up 2 is, especially with a resistant plate build. And that's exactly what this is. It's 4 plate resistant. If you're going to commit heavily into armor, you might as well go resistant in my opinion. I think adaptive is just really difficult to make use of, especially with this sort of frame. Maybe you can run it with a single plate, but this build is again about tanking up and being hard to kill, not necessarily relying on the fact throwing knives are powerful, but instead relying on their passive utility. The FSA is an incredible weapon, we all know this, it hasn't got a hell of a lot worse in this patch. Extended mag is much more viable with it now though, without ammo funnel, so that's the main attachment I would consider. And a similar idea with the Justicar, I run this as kind of a sniper killer with the longer barrel. Sociopath is our melee weapon. This is additional overhealing, and at times it's necessary healing, because the only way we get that utility out of pain tolerance is if we're at full health. So we go into Sociopath to do that, or we trade for civilians with Trade Broker. Similar idea. Let's dive into the gameplay and see exactly what these throwing knives can do. So whilst I don't love throwing knives in Payday 3, I do really like what Skills 2.0 has done for them. Being able to carry a much larger stack and replenish them passively feels amazing. I'm not sure they need to be locked out of ammo bag pickups as a result, that just seems like heavy-handed balancing, but I do adore the concept of prison shift. Now, my core issue with them hasn't been fixed, that being how they feel to throw accurately and how difficult they are to track in the air to see if you're even landing close. I think fan throw actually exacerbates this problem, as well as using up double the knives per throw, meaning seeing as we intend to do most of our damage via the laceration bleed effect, I don't see the point in running this at all. It's so rare the cops actually stand there nicely in a row, as they did in the early reveal video, meaning they either need to increase the number we get to toss even further, covering a wider arc, or actually tighten its spread to enable us to deal more single target damage. In the meantime, I'm riding high off the bleed and scaling damage of deep wounds, one-shotting everything we land a knife on, just so long as our crewmates don't steal the kill whilst they're bleeding out. Sadly, we're depending on these knife kills for pain tolerance over heal to keep us alive, the primary utility this build is shooting for, and if we don't land the finishing blow, it's all for nothing, meaning teammates will need to be somewhat vigilant of their allies' builds, especially if they're running high pen assault rifle setups. I'm also split on the pen effect of Knife Expert. On one hand, it makes these knives infinitely stronger up against a group of cops, enabling them to land multi-kills and sustain themselves better with prison shift. However, it all but guarantees you're losing that knife and won't be able to pick it out of a body, actually impacting your economy for the worse. I'd say the trade-off is usually worth it, but do need to test the playstyle further without this ace skill equipped. Also, I genuinely can't believe it's taken me this long to do a true FSA build after that monster of a semi-auto shotgun dominated the last 12 months of everyone's online lobbies. But here we are at last, somehow playing Bridesmaid to a build entirely based around chucking the world's smallest knives at people. Of course, the FSA will end up doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this setup, keeping in mind that knives are mostly there as a defensive option to proc adrenaline gain. But don't sleep on the one-shot potential of these things with the bleed and damage skills applied, bearing in mind how hard it is to reach those one-shot thresholds on most non-marksman rifle weapon options. As I've mentioned previously though, the FSA can still one-tap when within the 3 meter range of point blank, which undoubtedly gets out of hand when you can load this thing with up to 15 shells at a time. Reload skills will never quite make up for the loss of ammo funnel and replenish on shotguns, but it does go far enough to make the extended mag version feel viable again, especially without the need to reload on command to reset your edge and grit, something I still have to remind myself I no longer need to do, even when I'm not playing bloody Payday 3. Finally, I do need to quickly cover this investment I made in the professional tree, picking up a few puppet master skills to get to utility belts and increase my knife capacity by 5. To be clear, I could just add 4 more knives to the build by simply spending the final 6 points in Cutthroat directly. But as I said earlier, I'm not huge on the downsides of fan throw, don't need to proc Hidden Blade, and get to gain a fair bit of build utility via Trade Broker. With the 4 points I invest, that's 5 FAKs I'll gain when trading hostages, something I value quite highly to assist in topping up my healing supplies to retain access to the Pain Tolerance Adrenaline passive. Remember, the 20 adrenaline on kill only procs from full health, hence why it's worth carrying around at least a few extra healing options. It is worth noting that pain tolerance is getting nerfed in the coming patch, offering less damage reduction in most situations, and needing to be aced to provide that flat overheal effect. This build isn't overly impacted as it already aces it out, but keep it in mind if you favour that skill's active effect in other setups. That's it for the throwing knife build, heavily featuring the FSA shotgun. It's a fun, surprisingly tanky setup that actually offers more survivability options than it does damage. With how strong the alternative throwables are, I suspect knives will again be slept on, but 20 adrenaline per kill is a crazy effect to have, quite literally in your back pocket. Stay tuned on the channel for more build guides, we're not done just yet. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.